Hello, lovely people. Today is another miserable day in the UK. Welcome. But today we're going to have some fun because we're going to be talking about a moving microphone method. If you watched any of my previous videos, we tried to set up the crossovers and kind of try to do basic EQ by ear without using any tools, just our ears. However, I mentioned in the EQ video that a microphone is a very good tool that kind of helps to visualize what those drivers are doing. So today we're going to go back to basics and I'm going to cover REW, which is the software that we use to measure, and a measuring microphone. And we'll be talking about a moving microphone method. So this topic of measuring with a microphone is kind of highly debatable online because a lot of people say that you should be trusting only your ears because you're listening with your ears. But if you're not a professional, if you don't have a good reference, you don't know how good things kind of supposed to sound. Because if you're used to bad sounding systems for years and years, everything that is tuned properly and should sound good is going to sound bad to you just because you do not have that reference. Now, our reference is kind of stuff that we can measure and we can actually see, because ears are a bit deceiving in a way. So yes, you bought your DSP, you paid $400, $500, $600, $1,000 for the DSP, and you need to buy something else. Yes, you need to buy a measuring microphone. So this is probably one of the most popular ones, which is Mini DSP UMIC 1. It looks like that. It is a USB microphone, so you can plug it, come on, focus. You can plug it into your laptop directly. I do have a separate video, which is like 40 minutes long, just about the microphones. The difference between the microphones, XLR, USB, 3.5mm, that kind of stuff, the size and everything. If you want, you can watch that one. That goes much more in depth. But for this one, I'm going to be using this because I have it on hand. Microphone is just a tool that helps you see, visualize the sound waves that are coming from anything, from the speakers, basically. However, we need not only a microphone, but some kind of a software. So I am using REW, which some of you might know as Rev. It is a free software. You don't have to pay for it or anything, and you can use it as much as you want. As well, there's other software such as JL Tune. It is specifically designed to use with Macs, but you can use it with a single microphone as well. So the software itself is free. I'm not really used to that because REW is the thing that I constantly use and I know it inside out. So I'm going to be showing you everything with REW. Before we start measuring and before I show you the actual moving microphone method, we need to go through the basics, how to set up REW, because I've seen a lot of times online that people grab a microphone, just plug it in, start measuring, and they get nonsense data that doesn't look right and is just what's happening. So before we start measuring, we need to kind of know how to set up everything. Again, I do have an in-depth video about this. I do have a document which is called CADbug. I'm going to leave a link in the video description. You can check it out. It goes into extreme details, but for now, I'm just going to show you the very basic setup that you need in order to start measuring. Okay, so whenever you open REW for the first time, everything is going to be blank. There's going to be no settings, no nothing. We need to do a few things. First of all, we need to plug in our microphone. So we just grab a USB cable, we plug it into the USB port, and then you're going to have a pop-up asking, do you want to use this microphone? So UMIC Mini DSP is kind of designed for REW, so it's going to pop up automatically. Other microphones might not. So I'm going to press yes, I would like to use this. Then we're going to go into preferences, and in preferences we need to just double check some settings and make sure that we have everything correct. So first of all, the drivers, this is kind of automatically because when you plug in the microphone, these settings are taken from the actual like a microphone. So we have Java, 48 kilohertz sampling rate because this microphone doesn't measure any higher. And the input device, the only thing that we need is the input device to select the UMIC, which is selected by default. Then the second thing that we need to do is we'll go to Cal files over here. And in here, this purple thing is anything that is selected at the moment. So it is microphone UMIC. And here we need to find, with this one, the calibration file for this specific microphone. Every microphone will have a serial number, which you can see one here, 706-5929. So with this serial number, if you're gonna go to Mini DSP webpage and you're gonna just Google Mini DSP UMIC 1 calibration file, and you're gonna find that page, enter this number and it's gonna give you a file to select and download. When you download that file, you open it here and you're gonna have two of them. So for UMIC is gonna be like a normal one and the 90-degree. What we want is the 90-degree one because we will be measuring with a microphone held up. If you're measuring like bookshelf speakers and if you want everything on axis, you just select just a normal one. We're going to select the 90-degree one. Some microphones do not have that 90-degree calibration file. It's not a deal breaker, but for our case, to measure in a car is kind of useful. Now, apart from these two things, in the View tab, we can change some settings, but it's not really necessary, so we're just going to leave it as it is. Now, the other thing that we need to do is we need to go to the RTA tab. So RTA tab is the place where you actually measure stuff. So here on the left side, we have the SPL. You can choose between different Y-axis, but we need SPL. And then if we want to click this cog here, we're going to have some settings. So do make sure that you have these exact settings. Otherwise, you're not going to have the best results. So we need mode RTA 148 because what we want is to measure in the highest possible resolution. We're not going to apply any smoothing in the measurement. You can apply smoothing later on if you want. FFT length, we're going to keep it at 64K. Averages forever. And this is not necessarily, basically when REW counts averages, it can stop the measurement automatically at 50 or 100 or whatever. We're going to expand on this a bit later. Window, rectangular, and max overlap, we're going to choose 93. Another thing that you would want to change is whenever you install a fresh REW version, you need to go to appearances here and untick this use bars on RTA because by default it's using bars. I don't really like it, so I'm gonna untick and just keep it like this. This is pretty much it. All the settings that you need to do. And now we can double check if our microphone is working. This button here, the red one, is the thing that starts and stops your measurement. My microphone is plugged in, so it's gonna measure just floor noise, just literally noise in the car. If I'm gonna click on it, we see here at the bottom, this is basically me talking and the microphone is picking up my talking and it picks up everything. So this is just to make sure that the microphone is actually working. If I'm going to reset this and just shut up for a second, and then I stop the measurement, and here at the bottom you see the averages. Basically what RTA does, it counts multiple measurements and it averages them out. What we want to see when we do a measurement, we need a lot of averages, and this is where moving microphone method comes into play. So let me explain. So there are multiple methods how you can take the measurements with a microphone. The most simple one is just use a stationary microphone where you just stick it in there somewhere, like in between the headrest, or you have a specialized mount and you don't move it and it stays in one place. This is simple and easy. You can take measurements sitting outside of the car, but it's not as accurate because it's going to take a measurement in one specific point in space. And since we discovered last time when we were talking about EQ that in a car we have loads of reflections from the glass, from the sides, from the dash, ceiling, and everywhere, we want to take into account all those reflections, and we do that by making a spatial averaging of the whole response. So we need to measure the response all around wherever we're listening, which is around our ears and around our head. And this is exactly what REW does when it takes the averages. It takes a measurement, maybe a few measurements per second, and then it kind of averages everything out. And in that way, we take into account different high frequency responses in different places in space. So while REW is taking a measurement, while it takes the averages, what we need to do with this microphone, we need to move it around. And that's why the method is called moving microphone method. So you take the microphone, you hold it up, because we did enter the 90-degree calibration file. If you would want to measure on axis like that, then you would need to use like the normal file calibration. But for cars, we point it up towards the ceiling and use the 90-degree file. And then when we press measure and the averages are starting ramping up, then we need to sit in our sitting position. However we drive, we don't look to the side, we look straight as if we were driving, and we're moving the microphone around one ear, next ear, one ear, and next ear. Now, it doesn't really matter how many circles you do or how fast. Obviously, don't do this, and don't do like, taking half an hour for one ear. You just something like that, like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and so on. And you're taking measurements as long as we need to, and we're going to explain how long we need to take the measurements for. But this is in principle is the moving microphone method. Now, some people will argue that it's wrong that you sit in the driver's seat, you need some kind of device to move it for you. No, you make the measurements in exactly the same conditions as if you would be listening to music, because the measurements with you and without you in the driver's seat are going to differ, and you want the conditions to be exactly the same as if you would listen to music. Okay, so now that we covered how to take the measurements, how they look like, we need a noise to measure with, because we need to measure something. The best noise that you can get, if you're going to go to REW generator and you go to noise, then with noise, you choose pink periodic, which is the third one, and then we're going to choose full range. The level of this, if we're going to go to dBFS, we can set it a bit higher, so like -3 or -5. Don't do 0, because with 0 dBFS you will be clipping the digital signal, so we're going to keep it at -3, and then we're going to save it to file. We're going to choose mono 48 kilohertz, because we need to match the sampling rate of the microphone. These bits don't really matter, and I chose 40 repetitions, so it's going to be 1 minute long file. You can choose 400 if you want a much longer file, whatever you prefer, and then you save it as WAV file. So you save it and you're going to have this pink noise. If your head unit or whatever you're playing the pink noise through doesn't play WAV files, you need to convert it into, I don't know, FLACs, MP3s or whatever. But as long as your source plays WAV files, you're going to be sorted. So you take this file and you put it into your head unit. So in my case, if I'm going to choose PN, it's going to be something here. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same file, but is this pink noise, 64K, -3 dBFS, 48 kilohertz. And then you play this pink noise through your source. So if you're using your phone and you play only Bluetooth, you put that file on your phone. If you use a head unit, you put in a head unit. If you have a DAP, like a separate player, you put it on that. But this is the noise that you want to have, and this is the noise that we want to measure. Now, once we have that thing, and we can make sure that everything is playing, if I'm gonna play this one, you can hear pink noise is playing. Then we open our DSP software, whatever you're using. In my case, I'm using Done4Sound. And what you want to do is you want to mute all the speakers one by one, not the whole system, but individual speakers. And then we're going to start measuring. So we will be measuring each individual driver by its own. So in this case, we're going to start from the tweeters. So this is the tweeter channel, which is the left tweeter, which is right over there, that orange thing. And then I'm going to enable this one. And from the previous videos, we do have a crossover set for this driver. Now, if you did any EQ by ear, at this point, while you're measuring with a microphone, disable all the EQ so you can bypass all of them, which is using these bypass buttons, or you can restore EQ to 0, because we want to measure the response with no EQ applied, with no changes. So we have this one, just double check if it's playing. Yeah, we have pink noise coming from that side. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into REW, which is this same window. And this is probably the trickiest part, is that you need to play the pink noise, enable the measurement, start waving the microphone around, take about 50 to 100 averages. The average number depends on when the response stops changing, because when you put the microphone on one ear, on the other ear, you will see that the response changes slightly, but after some amount of averages, it kind of evens out and it doesn't change anymore. At that point, when it doesn't change, you want to stop the measurement because taking more averages is kind of pointless. So in most cases, it's going to be for mid-ranges and tweets, is going to be maybe like 60, 70 averages. I always recommend to go about 100 averages. For mid-bass and subwoofers, you need a bit less, but like 70, 80 averages is a very good amount. So let me demonstrate how to do one measurement. I have my file ready, I have REW ready, and I have my microphone ready. I'm playing pink noise. I'm start waving the microphone and I'm gonna click start measurement in REW. And I just stopped it. I stopped the measurement and I stopped the pink noise. Now, I did notice that about after 50 averages or so, the response didn't change. So this is done. We need to save the measurement. So we're going to click on current here and we save the measurement. This is one measurement taken. Now, if we want to take another one, I'm going to open the DSP software. I'm going to mute this tweeter that I was measuring, and I'm going to unmute this tweeter on the other side. Go back to REW, and then we're going to do exactly the same again. I'm going to put this one on. Now the pink noise is playing through that side, and I'm going to do exactly the same. Stop, and save current measurement. And that's it. So just for you to see a bit better, I'm going to do exactly the same just with the inbuilt screen. So you saw how it looks from outside, now how it looks inside. As I mentioned, DSP software, I have enabled this tweeter. Then I'm going to go to REW and I'm going to play pink noise, move the microphone, and press start in REW. Then I stop the measurement in REW because you can see nothing changes. I'm gonna stop the pink noise because it's annoying. And this is the measurement that you have. And you have to click this one, the current save button. If I'm gonna click on it, the measurement is gonna be transferred to the main REW window. Now I'm gonna close this window and I'm gonna find REW, which is here. And if I'm gonna go to all SPL tab right here, here I have all my measurements. On the left side, you need to name them. So the first one that I did left tweeter. And then these other three is the right tweeter that I did one after the other. I'm just going to delete this one because it's exactly the same. So this is the green and the orange is the same tweeter. It's just measured slightly differently because while doing the first one, I showed it with my phone in the very back. And the second one, when I had the phone in front of me, they're not exactly the same just because I didn't do them in the exact same way. However, you can see that they're extremely, extremely similar one to another. So if you're doing the moving microphone method, there should be extremely little variation between two measurements. But basically what we have, I'm just gonna put right tweeter like that, and I'm gonna disable this, enable that, and we have my left and right tweeter responses. Now in this video, I would like to focus only on the moving microphone method and how to take the actual measurements, not the responses, how to read them and everything. We will touch this in the next video when I'm going to take the measurements in exactly the same way as I showed you. I'm going to take the measurements of this tweeter, that mid bass, the other side as well, and the subwoofer. And then we're going to analyze in deep the two-way system that I have. And in next video, I'm going to show you how those measurements look like and basically what they mean and how to read these graphs. But in this one, I just wanted to focus on the actual measurement taking technique. So as I mentioned, you need a USB microphone. It can be any other microphone. You need pink noise, you need REW, and you need to do spatial averaging while moving the microphone around your listening position, which is around your ears. It is a bit fluffing around when you have to enable this, disable that, click that button, click that one, at the same time move the microphone and everything. You need to kind of get used to that, managing different things at the same time. So this is why I'm not jumping into the measurement straight away. I'm going to give you some time, again, some homework. Try to measure and see what results you're having. The main thing to remember is to have the calibration file, to set the settings correctly in REW, go back into the video and watch those settings what I showed you. And another measurement without the drivers, what is very useful to do, because a lot of people are asking always, at what volume, at what level do I need to take these measurements? So now, while I'm doing this, I'm going to put the microphone like that. I'm going to go to RTA. I'm going to take one measurement without talking. There we go. I stopped it and I'm going to click on current. So it's going to save the measurement to the main one. And there we go. So zoom out a little bit. This yellow line is my noise of the actual microphone and my environment. So what I want when I'm taking measurements, first take the measurement without nothing playing, like microphone, just hold it and don't talk, no nothing. Then you have this noise. And what you want is to make sure that whatever measurement you're taking, they would be at least 25 to 30 decibels, which is these grids, above the noise. So in this case, we can see one grid is 10 decibels. So we have 10, 20, 35 decibels above the noise, which is perfect. For the mid-bass and subwoofers, I would need to crank it up a bit. So I need the measurements to be 1, 2.5, somewhere around 50 decibel line, all the other measurements. Because what we want is to see the measurement and we want to see the crossover slope wherever it goes. Because if you're going to have your noise like somewhere here, you're not going to be able to see what's happening down there. So if we want to make good slopes, we want to see everything, we need the measurement level to be very high. Now, it doesn't have to be super, super loud because you're going to blow your eardrums and you're going to potentially damage the speakers. There's no point of doing that. Just make sure that your measurements are going to be way above the noise of the microphone. We're going to talk about this. Don't worry about this. I'm going to cover this in the next video. But for now, it's just how to take the measurements using the moving mic method. So I want to keep it nice and short. This is it. Do these measurements, save the REW file, and in the next video, we're going to analyze the frequency response of all the drivers. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.